We are live. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name's Craig Klein, and I'm joined by Scott Miller of Ramped Up, and we have Mila Osman also on board. And we really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. Scott, thank you especially for being part of this webinar. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Thank
And
you so much.
I want to just, sure. And, I just want to start off by saying, the reason we wanted to do this webinar is because we know it, feeling it as business owners ourselves, and we know it because we've talked to a lot of customers over the last few weeks that everybody is in this terrible situation, not only just personally, with the COVID situation and the lockdown, but in our business, we're all just spinning around in circles trying to figure out what should we be doing right now, what's appropriate, what's going to work, what's the future look like. There's just so many unknowns, and it's a really tough time. And so what we thought would be helpful is to really dig into some things that Scott and I have worked together on for many months now to make it easy for you to connect with customers in affordable ways that get results quickly, because that's the problem right now. It doesn't seem to make sense to start some project that's going to yield results in 6 months, because who knows, the whole world may have changed again in 6 months. We need something that's quick, effective, and gets results now. So that's what we're going to try and do today. I guess I kind of jumped the shark there a little bit. A little more background on Scott. Scott's the CEO of Ramped Up. And Scott, you want to say a little bit about what Ramped Up does?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thanks so much, Craig. And I've been in this business like you have for a long time. We've worked with each other in different iterations for the last decade or so. And, my business, Ramped Up, is really designed to help, provide sales and marketing intelligence so that, and your customers, people that want to do digital marketing have the tools and the information to do so. And that's the reason why we're in business. And that's why we're having this conversation today, is to take advantage of the assets that you have, try to find some assets that you don't have, and get in the game, right? And that's why we're here.
Perfect. Hey, Craig, real quick, will you click present just to make sure that we've got a clean presentation?
Oh, yeah. So, sorry, I'm not showing the actual slides, am I? Duh. Okay. There we go. Is that better?
Perfect. There we go.
Okay. All right. So now I am going to start a poll. You guys should all see that now, so that you can tell us a little bit about yourselves. We want to know a little bit about your experience during this lockdown, and also, your plans from a marketing point of view, and where your head is, so that we can make sure we try to address your concerns and needs here in the webinar here. So if you guys will look for that poll on your screen and just try to answer those questions here in the next couple of minutes, that'd be great. And then once everybody's finished, we can show the results to everybody so that you all can also see kind of where everyone else is coming from. Scott, while everybody's doing that, you told me a story the other day about a company you worked with. I think they were in Ireland. You want to share that story with the group?
Yeah. So, it's really applicable to this polling question. How is COVID-19 impacting your business? We have a customer, a large customer that's based out of Ireland, that has a huge presence here in the United States. They're a global company. And they were informed that, they'd been selected by the United States government to help build field hospitals. And they provide a lot of the ancillary solutions and products for field hospitals. And so, they had to, ramp up, pun intended, of course, their email marketing, right? And so, normally we're talking to marketers and sales leaders and operations people, but, this was somebody that was in the supply chain because he needed to notify all the people that were in his ERP system, right? That were suppliers that, they are in fact in business and they needed to, get more information and they needed to increase supply to meet some of the demand that the U.S. government was going to ask for them. And so that exercise of trying to get, suppliers from an ERP system, suppliers from a CRM, suppliers from, different financial systems, and, getting all that, in one platform to try to get it, consolidated, and B, give it to us so that we could validate the email addresses. I mean, that's, one of our core pieces of functionality is to validate a contact record and an email address. It probably took him, 7 to 10 business days, right, to get that information consolidated, and then get the, for us to, it only took us a day or so to get the emails and the contacts returned to him clean. But, he really lamented the fact that he didn't have this already in place. And he said he missed out on 2 weeks of preparation and it's going to impact, further down the supply chain. So that's a pretty good example about how it's impacting his business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so awesome to be able to be involved in somebody, really helping and contributing to what's going on right now. Good on you for being part of that. So let's see, it looks like we got a pretty good amount of voting in now. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll so we can move ahead and then share the results. So you guys should see that now. Let me know if you do. Looks like the biggest impact, of course, is what you would expect. People are shifting to remote work, and it says second highest thing is mostly business as usual. That's good to hear. And then that second question there about organizing your communication, just one big list. That's the problem, right? It's kind of what you were referring to there, Scott. Rate your success in pivoting your marketing and sales strategy. 40%. Okay. I guess we had 40% in there as an answer twice.
What's interesting about seeing poll results is that, you see, all of us here, sharing our screen, that's become the new normal, right? The Zoom meetings, the web conferences have become the new normal. In my house, we have 2 kids that are doing distance learning, and my wife works full time as well. And so, we run out of bandwidth. So I had to tell everybody that I have a webinar to do today. Don't get on Netflix. Right. Don't do e-learning, right? Just so that I can make sure I don't, black out somehow. So that's also something that we've had to deal with. Yeah,
for sure. That's something that's not even on the poll, right? Is how do you manage all of this stuff and your kids at the same time, right? It's a challenge for a lot of people.
That's right.
Same marketing spending. Wow, that's really good to hear. How to create messages that get results. So that's what everybody wants to know. Well, I think we can get to that today. That's good. So I think we're generally on the same page with everybody. So we've kind of already hit on this. I mean, the challenge that we're all faced with is just, what's the future going to look like? How do you make smart decisions about marketing and sales strategies and lead generation and things like that without knowing what the next few months are even going to look like? Customers can be discombobulated. We're seeing, just like we've seen in the poll from the audience, there's Some people that are increasing budgets, some people that are cutting back and laying people off, and some people that it's kind of, business as usual. But I think it's also going to be difficult to get our customers, to make long-term commitments, just in the same way that we're having the same difficulty. But history shows for sure that this is the kind of time that you really have to focus on marketing, because while your competitors are discombobulated, just like you are, just like everyone is, you have the opportunity to stand apart from everyone else and raise your profile in your marketplace by doubling down on marketing and branding and lead generation and engagement, reaching out and trying to help customers. Those of us who take advantage of this opportunity to stand out while everyone else is confused will be the ones that thrive a year, 2 years down the road. The problem that most of us have, if you're in a small or medium-sized business, is this, right? We're not AT&T or Comcast or somebody. We don't have the budget to be in front of every potential customer all over the world. You have lots of potential customers that just don't know you're there. Your customers is a small portion of the overall market that you could be selling to. So how can we, in this moment, this crazy time, find a way to get you in front of all of these people, not just the tiny little audience that you happen to already be engaged with? That's what we're going to address today.
Your total addressable market.
Yeah, there you go. That's the term. And of course, the problem is a lot of companies were depending on certain types of marketing that are just gone now, right? So maybe you're doing a lot of trade shows. If you're in certain industries, that's the way to get in front of customers. You show up at the big trade show, you meet everybody, and those are your leads for the rest of the year. Or maybe you did a lot of networking, or maybe it was cold calling. Even cold calling is a problem because people aren't at their desk phone, right? And maybe that's the only phone number you have. We have a lot of customers, believe it or not, that still sell the old-fashioned way. They literally drive around and drop in on physical locations of businesses. Well, all that stuff just done. What do you do? I mean, can you imagine? I can't imagine being in that situation where that was my primary market, and then this thing comes out of nowhere, and just, what do you do, right? It's got to be scary.
Another thing that you see a lot of as well, Craig, is for digital marketing that rely on, marketing to people at work. That's not effective either, right? If those IP addresses are tied to where somebody goes into work and it's not tied to where they live, and that's not effective either. So that's also been a big hindrance for a lot of marketers.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just one way or the other, just the rock that you thought you were standing on in terms of your marketing foundation just kind of all crumbled, and everyone's swimming. So you find yourself in that situation. Everything's overturned, and you're looking at alternatives, trying to decide, okay, well, where should we invest our resources? Well, the problem with just about any kind of traditional marketing is it's a real tough learning curve. There's a lot of investment up front. There's a lot of risks and a pretty long-term payoff curve. You may not get a lot of feedback from the audience if you're doing things like TV and radio. It can be extremely expensive. It can be hard to measure the ROI. Is it really working or not? And you ultimately you might not know, depending on the business you're in and the audience you're targeting. You might not know if it's working for months. However, one thing is true. For years, this has been the basic breakdown. When marketers are surveyed, what are the most effective online tactics used for lead generation? Email marketing always comes out on top. And we're going to talk about why that is. I'm not here to tell you that's the only answer for you. But I do feel like right now there's some specific advantages that it offers that we're going to get into here today. Website and landing pages, obviously, that if you have great search rankings already coming into this shutdown, then you're in good shape because everybody's searching, right? But if you didn't already have that, it's kind of hard to snap your fingers and make that happen.
Just kind of in relation to this, Craig, Richard Pearson had commented here that his company is a supplier to the trade show and event industry. It was obviously first impacted and it's going to be the last to recover. And, a lot of people here probably work in trade shows. So what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great point, and that's a tough thing. I mean, what I've seen is some organizations that are typically sending me emails about their physical trade show type of events have pivoted to they're putting on webinars like this and virtual events, right? And so if that's your customer, then what I would recommend is figure out how can you help them do that, because surely they're all struggling with that. If you were in the business of physical events and now all of a sudden you need to be in the business of online events, that's got to be a pretty tough change for a lot of organizations. So maybe there's ways you can help them with that. So on email marketing, typically what we've seen with our customers is just simple lead nurturing programs, taking the leads you already have. You don't even have to generate new leads, just the ones you've had for years, possibly. The leads that have come in and you've tried to sell them something, but they didn't buy anything. Just staying in touch with those guys can increase your sales by 10 to 20% within just a few months. And it's not rocket science. You spend about $1,000 on some technology, maybe 4 to 8 hours to put together 1 or 2 emails, and you can start seeing results. Generating new leads, back to that circle that we showed with the total addressable market. If you can put together a list of all of those people that don't know you exist and start getting emails in front of them, what could come from that? It could be huge, right? And then there's sales automation. Just if you're going through your normal sales process, how can emails help streamline your sales pipeline, help customers move through the pipeline by educating them, getting them more engaged with your brand, taking their temperature, knowing when they're stalling or confused or things like that. It's not hard to do, and it can be a huge return on your investment.
Greg, one of the things I think you're alluding to with the lead nurturing and why that's such a strong motivation right now is that, there was a reason why that person got into your CRM or, called you up to begin with, right? And it didn't work out, or else they wouldn't be a lead right now, they would be a customer. But everything has changed, right? So that example I gave earlier about the large company that, wanted us to do a large project for them to clean up their database. Those guys, told us that that they didn't really need our services right now, and that they would look at us in the summer, right? All of a sudden things changed, and we're talking to these guys right now because of the new reality. I would put that into perspective as you start to kind of dust off all of your old leads, because the reason why they might have said no 8 weeks ago might be different now. It could be a reason why they say yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Everything changed, and everybody that said no a few months ago might be a yes today just because everything changed.
Exactly.
The other thing about lead nurturing is that, back when I got into selling, 20 years ago, I remember people would say, well, you got to touch your customer 3 to 5 times before they buy. That was sort of the marketing wisdom that was out there. And as time's gone by, that number has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. In our digital world where more and more people are doing lead nurturing and customers have more ways to engage with you, they need more contact with your brand before they get confident enough to part with their money. And so if you think about it from the standpoint of, wow, do my salespeople need to touch a customer 12 times to make a sale? Man, that's a huge investment, right? And most customers just aren't going to make it that far, right? Just getting them on the phone right now could be a problem. So we can come up with ways to automate that so that, some of these touch points are automated and electronic and not your salesperson having to make 10 phone calls just to get somebody on the phone. Here's a great example of how simple this can be. It doesn't have to be, super complex or take months to put together. This is a customer that's in the energy business primarily. They've been around for a long time, and they've built up a pretty big list, mostly from going to trade shows, of past leads and clients, right? About 7,500 people. And what they do is they write a blog about twice a month. And this is really technical stuff. They sell ventilation equipment for manufacturing plants and oil rigs and things like that. That you can see this particular blog post. This is the stats on this email they sent out about one of their blog posts, and that's all they do. They write a blog. They send an email saying, "Hey, we just published an article about this. You might want to take a look." Right? Using spread and throw calculations to efficiently place spot cooling fans. I mean, I don't even know what that really means, but it works. What they tell us is that every one of their sales reps, they have 5 sales reps, every one of their sales reps gets a new lead once a month from those emails. And a new lead for them is not a small thing. Their sales are $25,000 minimum, sometimes $500,000. So a new lead's worth a lot of money, right? That's all there is to it, right? If you're an expert in your field and you can create content like that your audience will find interesting, then that can be the answer. All you got to do is create an email that gets it in front of them.
We do have a question from Victor Martin. He asked, how often should we send out emails?
That's a tough call, and it depends on your audience and the situation, right? In this case, if it's a blog article like this, content, I wouldn't overdo it. Maybe once a week is enough. I wouldn't go much more frequent than that, depending on the audience. If it's somebody that just signed up for a white paper or a free trial on your site, then probably more often is okay for some period of time. Scott, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's the old adage, really, that no response doesn't really mean no interest, right? And so you really want to stay top of mind with people that have shown some intent. In my line of work, the word intent is really hot word right now. And if someone comes to your website and asks for some more information, they've shown intent. So I would, use that as an adage. But I'd also use another, buzzword as well, the buyer's journey, right? If someone is in process and they're making a selection to purchase something, you want those touches more frequently than someone that is not, right? There's someone that hasn't heard from you in a while, and they've fallen outside of your opportunity cycles, right? And so that's when you might want to have a cadence that might be, weekly, biweekly, monthly, more like a newsletter or blog type thing, as opposed to, making sure you're top of mind with folks that are in a buying cycle.
Right, right. Yeah, and you use the data to guide you, right? You can see here, your email system is going to tell you how many people are opting out. Well, if you see that number start to grow, well, then you're probably doing it too often, or you're sending them things they're not interested in. So as we've kind of talked about, emails are affordable and they offer you a quick ROI. We kind of talked about marketers rate it that way over and over again, year after year. They're simple and easy. You don't have to be a super guru, or you don't even have to design a pretty email. Simple text can work. What I like about email is it's really easy to just try something. There's very little investment and there's very little risk to just try it. And then you look at the data that comes back, how many people opened it and clicked on it and opted out. And based on that, did it work or not? If it didn't, let's do something different. If it did, let's do more of that, right? And then you can use that as kind of a test bed before you go invest in more expensive kinds of advertising. In other words, if I figure out what emails get results, then those same messages can work in my Google AdWords or my display ads or my banner ads or whatever else you want to do. Yeah, and Scott, you already mentioned this, that people working from home, they may not be seeing your ad at this point. You might be running ads that just aren't getting seen.
We did have another question. I just wanted to interrupt real quick. Michael Reed said that he is an insurance producer and in sales, and he asked, how about texting? I thought that was really a good question, just because of the whole SMS thing going on now, with how important that is, especially with not being in person.
Yeah. So it depends on, there's a lot of things there and we don't have time to get into, but there are some legal requirements. Number one, you got to be aware of. And number two, you have to have a good list, right? You got to have their mobile number. If you have a phone number for somebody, if it's a mobile number or a desk phone or something, right? Can they even receive a text message there? But for sure, if in some cases, like Scott was saying, depending on where they are in that journey, when they're engaged with your brand, text messages can be super effective, right? Like for a webinar like this, right? A text message reminding everybody, hey, the webinar starts in 15 minutes. Don't forget, here's the link, that kind of thing. So here's the problem with most advertising from my point of view. And this comes from, 20 years of spending a lot of money and time on all kinds of advertising. If my experience mostly with AdWords and digital ads of that kind, you start spending money at a very high rate right out of the gate. But it takes time for it all to get tuned up and optimized and to really start working. So you don't actually start seeing results except in small doses for a long, long time. So it can be literally months before you see any ROI from your investment. So you're, shelling out, who knows, thousands of dollars every month, hoping that 6 months down the road, you're going to get a payoff. And if you're like me and you're not an expert in that kind of stuff and you're paying some consultant, you kind of have to trust their word for it. I mean, that's a very uncomfortable situation that right now, like we've talked about, just kind of doesn't work, because who knows what the market's going to look like 6 months from now. Everything could have changed again, So that's why email marketing is so powerful, because you just don't have to spend much money on it, right? Your investment can be very minimal and you can start to see results very quickly. And then when you start to see the results, and build up a bigger list and things like that, you can scale it up and invest more money and use that data that you've accumulated, what messages work with what audiences, and start doing more digital advertising with the assurance that it's going to work and pay off more quickly, right? So to me, it's kind of a two-step dance. Use email to optimize and then move on. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
This is a really interesting slide because, you know, as a business owner myself, I mean, I had spent a fortune, you know, obviously, like most people have, on Google AdWords. And the one thing that I don't think a lot of people take into account is your sales process. How long does it take to close a piece of business? Does it take, you know, 4 months? Does it take 6 months? Does it take 9 months on average? Of course, you can look at that through your historical data. Well, that's, you know, that is indicative of the curve that you're showing there, right? And so if you spend an optimal amount of money on Google AdWords at the very beginning, January per se, right? And that spend is consistent throughout the course of the year, that you're still going to have the same sales process, you know, the 4, 6, 8, 9 month sales process for that to catch up. Google AdWords are great, but it takes a long time for them to catch up. And especially in this environment, you know, we don't know what people are searching for 8 months ago applies today, or what we're doing today will apply from 8 months from now. So it's probably not the best decision to think right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. We are very honored to have John Armstrong, who's a customer of Sales Nexus, on the line. John, I'm going to turn on your mic here. We should be able to hear from you. Are you there?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Craig.
Hey, I really appreciate you joining us. We wanted John to be on because he's recently been doing this, essentially, to just kind of say a few things about his perspective in you know, being out there on the front lines and how it's working.
Oh, great. Thank you. And hello, everybody. I'm John Armstrong. I'm with Premium Medical Solutions, and I sell medical devices. And as you can imagine, with the COVID-19 challenge, this has really changed my business. It's changed a lot of people's business. But what's caused me to have to do is, whereas I was outside consulting and selling medical devices, now I really have to target those people who are willing to buy medical devices, because that's where I'm going to get my money at the moment. That would also include selling the COVID-19 test for antibodies. So what I was able to do was work with Mila, who really focused my thinking. And I would say that, you know, I knew that I wanted to focus on 2 products, and then we ultimately selected one. And so she was able to really get my thinking clear and get me organized to understand what the key drivers of customer choice would be, and then what the marketing messages would be that would really grab somebody's attention and cause them to respond and click through the message. And so she wrote a really great email. I gave a little bit of input, but she did all the heavy lifting. And we sent it out. And I wanted to talk to you about a few unintended consequences that were absolutely terrific. I know when I saw Craig Klein talk about this on YouTube about 1.5 years ago, I knew I wanted to buy this database. It was simpler to me than Salesforce. But what was really interesting to me was it was very customizable. So when we did this campaign, Mila put together a video that lasted 5 minutes or so. And it really brought everything together of how everything, you know, comes together in the entire process of the sales rep's journey, right? In terms of customizing my database, understanding how I was going to record who I'd spoken with and who had interest and qualify the leads. And so I would just say that, you know, of the campaign, we sent out 25,000 emails. I think we got a good response rate. And I have 2 people in the pipeline. My sales, too, are high value. They're $35,000, $40,000. So it was a successful campaign, but even more than that, it allowed me to really unleash the full potential of the database that I, you know, was excited about 1.5 years ago, because where I was fiddling around with everything before, everything came together. So I appreciate all Mila's good work, and Craig, I appreciate you for allowing me to talk about that.
Yeah, well, no, I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. And one other question, just to give everybody a sense for the, you know, their time investment in doing something like this. How much, like, what was the timeline for you when you decided to do this, and when we actually got the emails out the door? How much time went by between them?
I think it was about 1.5 weeks. And the onus was really on me to go ahead and list all the information that Neela asked for. So, I could have collapsed that time to it less than a week if I wanted to, but it took me a little bit to get my thoughts together.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, week and a half, gosh, that's the point, right? Is that we don't have to wait months to see results, right? John, I really appreciate you joining us, and we'll look forward to helping you do this again here in a few weeks.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I didn't expect him to say a week and a half. I thought he was going to say like a month and a half. That's super fast. So what I wanted to do is show you guys just kind of like John was just saying, what does this look like? Okay, great. Some emails go out, but how does that turn into sales for me, right? For a B2B organization, that's a little different than if you're like an e-commerce business, right? So here I am in Sales Next, and number one, when you first get started, you go import your contacts, and you can import, a CSV of leads that you already have, or from a trade show or something, or you can load in your Google contacts or your Outlook contacts. That's super easy, a great way to get started real fast. And then you create yourself a nice looking email. Here's an example of one that we send out that gets good results. Not rocket science, right? Just an image we found online and a little bit of, hey, do you have this problem? Is Excel driving you nuts? If so, click here and come to our website, and we're going to offer you some tips. That's all. Just kind of like back to that blog post example we were talking about earlier. So you create an email, and then you go up here and you say, all right, I'm going to take those people that I just loaded into the system and put them on a campaign, right? So here's my lead nurturing campaign. And I'm not just going to send them one email. Ideally, I'm going to send them a whole bunch of emails, but you see they're spaced out, one a week, right? So I go down here and I say, all right, I want to start those maybe tomorrow morning, first thing. You see it says look up 93. That's the 93 people I just loaded in or whatever. And I add those people to a campaign, and the emails start going out. It's totally set it and forget it. I don't have to worry about it next week. It just happens, right? And all I do as a sales rep is I come in here and I get a list of everyone that's clicked on those emails, right? So here's a list, and I can segment even that list. So I can say, let me see not just all the people that clicked on those emails and read that blog article, but in particular, I'm interested in maybe people in certain industries or people with the larger teams that, have the larger budgets. So I can sort my list that way. You can see right here, I can just click and dial my phone if I want, or click in and go to one of those contacts and, see more data about that customer and then call them, right? But that's how you turn these content emails into sales leads. If you make that call relatively quickly, they've just been on your website, they just watched your video, they just read your article, they're engaged with your brand. Call them right now, and you're instantly having this very warm call with them.
Yeah, the old adage, speed to lead, right? The person that contacts a prospect that's looking for a particular product, 50% of the time that person wins, despite the product or the person or the company. So speed to lead,
yeah,
and that's what you need.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. All right. So, Scott, we've come to the portion of the presentation where you're the expert.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So, you know, a good example, you know, of what you showed us there and what John was talking about before is that you know, at the end of the day, you have to have the individuals that you would like to market to, right? And so, you know, we look at things that ramped up, you know, in terms of, you know, empowering marketers and business owners and sellers with, you know, actionable sales and marketing intelligence. And so the best information that we think you have is already in your database, right? So what we advise our customers to do is that let's take a look at what you have internally and let's optimize that, right? And so what that means for us is that, you know, we will add the titles, add the phone numbers, add the physical addresses, or even add emails, you know, to people that you might not have, right? That's the proverbial white space, right? And I think we'll show a little bit of what that looks like. But white space is just, you know, an Excel spreadsheet that doesn't have anything in it, right? That's white space, and that's not good when you're doing email marketing. The second piece that we have that's unique is this concept of personal to professional. You know, if you think about different ways that companies collect email information and digital information, especially if it's through an online form or a list that they might have acquired from a trade show or something like this, and have done a webinar, oftentimes individuals register for events through their personal email address. And so what we can do is help you find the professional information that's associated with a personal email address. That's really helpful, right? So that's the difference between, you know, just a tire kicker or, you know, perhaps someone that fits right in your ideal customer profile, your ideal buyer. So you want those folks, right? The third thing that we recommend, you know, that we do for our customers is that, you know, you want to find folks that you've already invested. You know, they've either, you know, literally invested in your business, their customers, or you've invested in them with brand awareness and marketing, but they've moved to other places, right? And so we keep historical email addresses in our system. So what that means is that if you have an old email address, say from, you know, customer 4 or 5 years ago, and you would like to begin marketing to them again, you know, we can help you find those folks and quote unquote help them unpack in their new job, right? And so that's really helpful, and that's something that we try to do on a quarterly basis with all of our records. So that's cleaning it up. That's the internal piece. And then what we say to do, and then let's take a look at, you know, once you've cleaned up your database, why don't we analyze it and, you know, try to figure out really, you know, who is buying your stuff, right? What are the commonalities of all of your customers? And let's create what we call lookalikes from those customers. And so, you know, you had that little picture about the little circle inside the big circle, the total addressable market. Let's try to find out who those people are in the big circle, right? And that look like your customers. And so that's what we'll do, right? And say, well, you know, these are the VPs of operations in Texas that are between 50 and 150 million in revenue. So as an example, right? If those are some of the things that we can ascertain from your database. And so then you have net new records, right? So, you know, that's really the 4-step process. You know, that's how you get your database ramped up.
Right. Yeah. And so quick example of what Scott's talking about, how, I mean, it kind of blew me away, honestly, how easy this was. We have on our site, just like most people, you know, most people have a little newsletter sign up thing on their WordPress website, right? And all you do is you ask for the customer's email address. We have something similar. It's a white paper, but it's same idea, right? We get a lot of email addresses in that form, people signing up to get that white paper, but that's all we get is their email. And so, you know, here's the list, right? All I got mostly is a bunch of email addresses, very few even names or phone numbers, right? This is our original list that I dumped out of our system, right? I sent it over to Scott and ramped up, and I got back this. Everything, LinkedIn URLs, company name, title, revenue, employees. Also, check this out right here. Spam trap alert, right? They're validating if this email address is going to get me in spam trouble, right? And they're also just validating the mailbox general. Sometimes people put in bogus mailboxes, right? So all that kind of helps you stay out of spam trouble. But you can see, look at all this data. I mean, it just blew me away. There's so much you could do with that, right? So you could use this to segment, and just like Scott was just talking about, how many of these people actually bought, and of those people, what industry are they in, and how big are they, or what region of the country are they in? And now let's target other people that fit those same criteria.
And I'm sure Mila will attest to this. I'm sure what Mila would attest to is that, the more information you have on a database, the better she can micro campaign, right? I mean, if I know that I have, individuals that are within a certain company size or revenue size or location or title, or you have specialties and SIC codes and industries, and if I know that information, then I can tailor a very specific piece of content, maybe have a specific use case to those folks. And that's what equals opens, right? I mean, people open up email addresses because they think it's pertinent to what they do. That's the reason why you show that use case earlier with that very specific title. And the reason why it's so well received is the people that are receiving it understand exactly what they're talking about. And that's what we can help you do by giving you that information.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
So again, I saw a question come across, like, what is Ramped Up? I mean, we are, we help sales and marketers with their sales and marketing data, right? And that's what it is, right? So either helping them clean up their data like we saw before, or adding net new contact records so that they can market to people that they're not marketing to today.
Yeah, and I think most people kind of have like a very, they feel a little leery about sending out emails to cold lists.
Yep.
But the thing about Ramped Up too is when you spend the time and you get real focused on what kind of people are you looking to attract, you can get that list from Ramped Up. You can get very specific with it, and that's going to provide a warm email and a warm lead for you. It's not cold.
That's true. I mean, that's
right.
The idea, right? I mean, the more tailored you can make an email, the better it will be received. But this slide here, which I think is important, is that a lot of folks, they have some hesitancy of sending out an email if they don't know if it's legal to send an email to someone that hasn't opted in, right? So when an opt-in is basically saying, I provide information, I provide email information, but I have to have the consent of the person I'm sending the recipient, right? So that's what opt-in means. And so you have to be mindful of that, right? Sometimes it's a company policy, right? Like, say, we don't send emails unless people have opted in. If that's the case, then that's the case, right? But the truth is, in the United States of America, that's not necessarily what the law is. The law is that, the CAN spam law says that, you have to send thoughtful emails to individuals, provided that you have, the information is germane and necessarily, and you have the proper address at the bottom and the ability to opt out. And that's United States. But there's a lot of terminology that marketers hear that they don't know if it applies to them, right? So CASL, the Canadian anti-spam legislation, CASL. So if you're emailing someone in Canada, you might want to think you can't do that without their permission, right? So CASL is opted in, right? GDPR, that's European, that's the General Data Protection Regulation. So that's probably not as restrictive as CASL is. There's some things that are called legitimate business interests, but by and large, you want to have a pretty good reason why you're emailing these folks and having having opted in. And then this one to the right, the CCPA, right, is the California Consumer Protection Act. And a lot of folks think, well, maybe I can't email someone or have someone's information if they're in California. And that's not really what the law is, right? What the law in California says is that you have the right to be forgotten. If you have personal information, consumer information on me, I have the right to understand what that is. I have the right to be opted out of your database. So that's sort of like some transparency for consumers. It's good to be cognizant of these regulations, but in the United States, you can, if it's a company policy and you don't want to email someone that hasn't opted in, that's fantastic, but that's your company policy. Then invest in cleaning up the data that you have now so that, the information that you have on those folks is accurate, and so that you can get, that asset's even more important to you But if you do want to email people that are in your total addressable market and they look like your customers, you're allowed to do so in the United States, and especially if you're using Sales Nexus, there's all the marketing automation technology to help keep you compliant if someone opts out.
Right, exactly. It just goes to the point of making sure that you can segment your data and send the appropriate emails to the appropriate people.
Yeah, and then the last thing, and you mentioned earlier, Craig, when you had the 13 or 14 touches, one of the things that is really working for a lot of individual contributors or sellers is to have a multimedia, multi-touch strategy. Some people might not be necessarily receptive to getting an email, especially if you can't send one to Canada, right? Or if your company policy is that you don't want to send ones that are opted out. Call these folks, right? Especially under this new reality that is the under COVID and the work from home, is that picking up the phone and calling somebody at their cell phone or whatnot is going to be much better than trying to obviously call them on the landline. Professional and personal email addresses. The idea behind here is that if you have a personal email address, well, why don't we see if we have the professional email address, or vice versa. I don't know if you always want to just email somebody at their Gmail account if they haven't opted into what you're looking for, but that personal email address can really be used for some of the very, very targeted display advertisement once you figured out what you're doing with that information. And then lastly, the social profiles. I mean, you saw the information that Craig put up about LinkedIn URLs. I mean, that is a very, very effective way, provided that it is genuine and not generic, to reach out and start a conversation with someone new is through LinkedIn. I would advise you to personalize it, as I would advise you to personalize all your communication. I'm sure everybody that's watching this or hearing my voice right now has received just a boilerplate solicitation from LinkedIn, and I don't know if that's necessarily as effective without trying to put a little time, energy, and effort. And if you do that, you will be rewarded. So those are some different ways to use the data that we provide.
Yeah, it's a great point. I've found myself that, reaching out to somebody in LinkedIn when it's genuine is people are very responsive and very, it's like somebody asked about SMS earlier, right? Text messages get a huge response rate. LinkedIn messages get a pretty good response rate too. But it can't be just spam, it's got to be something genuine, authentic. So for email, we like to make sure that everybody understands kind of what to expect, because the bottom line is not all the emails you sent get seen by your customers. So if you have a list of maybe 100 or 200 people, then and you send out an email, don't expect 50 phone calls, because most of them aren't even going to see it. That's the bottom line. Just the way we read emails. If you think about how quickly you go through your inbox and just delete, as you're trying to find the stuff that's important and not waste time on the things that aren't important to you, right? So you should expect, the benchmarks are 10 to 20% open rate. That means I just looked at it. I didn't click on it. I didn't go to your website. I didn't call you. I didn't watch a video. I just looked at I clicked in my inbox and looked at it. And then a 1 to 2% click rate, meaning I opened it, I looked at it, and I read it, and I clicked to watch the video or go to your website or download the white paper or whatever that is. So if you send out 1,000 emails, you get 100 to 200 opens and 10 to 20 clicks. And the clicks really what you're looking for, right? The visitor, the download, whatever. So back to what Scott's been talking about. You have to have a pretty decent sized list to move the needle, right? And so if you've got 1,000 people on your list, but half of them are bad emails, well, or you you can't really quickly pull up, you know, a good sized list of people with email addresses. All you know is their name and their company. Well, you know, Ramped Up can help you infill those email addresses so that you've got a bigger audience to start with in the first place. And the numbers start to really add up. You know, when you, and that's what we were referring to earlier, when you start sending out emails, the system is going to tell you how many people are opening and how many people are clicking, and that data helps you optimize. If my email, like in this case, these are great numbers. I beat the benchmarks, right? Got a 22% open rate and a 6% click rate. That's great. Doesn't always happen that way. But the point is, if my open rate's real low, that tells me this subject line did not work. This is telling me that this subject line really worked. People like it. Let's get the party started. Okay, you know, gets people attention, right? But now you can start to use that data to optimize. If my click rate was low, that would tell me not that the subject line's messed up, but that the email itself is not working. So now I know what to work on. And that's how you use this. You send out an email, you go and quickly look at this data, you go back to the drawing board and you make adjustments and you do it again. You can do it week after week after week, and shoot, within 2 or 3 weeks, you're getting to the point where you've got things dialed in and you're really ready to start moving the needle.
We do have a question in regards to emails before we get a little bit into the next slide.
Sure.
Michael is asking, what are the best subject lines for a blind email? And it's very vague, obviously, but, you know, like, what are some of just generalized subject lines? Like, what type of email subjects?
To me, it's back to what Scott was talking about. The more focused on the audience it is, the more effective it's going to be, you know? So if you're selling, then, I'm sorry, if you're selling to doctors like John, you know, then probably highly technical medical terms and things like that are going to get people's attention. Or, you know, things like, are your patients suffering from blah, 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 right? Those kind of subject lines are going to work. That's the formula that I start with, is just, what's your customer's pain, and highlight that in your subject line. You know, is this a problem for you? Because if it is, they're going to want to see the email.
Exactly.
So some things that most people do wrong when they get started with this to try and avoid. Don't forget about your, you know, all those past leads. We've kind of talked about that, right? All those leads that came in and you met at the trade show 2 years ago. Those are potentially great opportunities for an email. Don't forget about your customers. You know, right now, this could be a great time to upsell and cross-sell and things like that with people that you're already doing business with. And then be good about the follow-up piece. In a B2B sense, if you don't have a website where they can just go put in their credit card number and make the purchase without talking to a human being, then you've got to be quick. Like Scott said, what was the term, Scott? Speed to lead, right?
Speed to lead, yeah.
You got to be able to make that call quick. Your system needs to tell you, here's the people that click that need a call right now. You know? And then don't talk about yourself in your emails. Talk about the customer, like we were just talking about. Don't say, hi, my name's Craig, and we provide a CRM, and it's really cool because of all these reasons. And if you'd like to talk about that, please, you know, reply back and let me know a good time to call you. Done. Delete. You know, send me an email that says, hey, are you struggling to reach your audience right now? Hey, are you struggling to help patients navigate this current lockdown situation. You're struggling to connect with patients that are stuck at home. You know, whatever the problem is that you can help with. Talk about that. So here's a few examples of some emails. Mostly this is here because we want you to understand the design element is not really the most important thing. These are nicely designed. They look good, right? They have a nice little image, a little bit of copy, and that's it. Relatively simple. You've got images, right? You've got product shots. You've got pictures of clients dealing with problems that you help with. But notice that none of these emails have 2 pages of copy all about your product. You're not trying to educate in the email. You're only trying to get their attention and make them want to come to your website or watch your video, whatever, to engage with you. You're wanting them to raise their hand and say, I have this problem and you could probably help me. You should probably call, right? Keep it really simple. The main point here is don't delay sending out your email in order to make the perfect email. Create what you can create, get it out the door, and let the data tell you if it worked or not, and then adjust using that data.
Yeah. What I like about these examples that you have there, Craig, is that you've got really the 2 things that you have to have, right? You have to have something that will capture the eye, right? But something that will also pass the text test, right? Especially if you're looking at something on a mobile phone on your device that will maybe prohibit HTML, without authorization. You still want that information to get across, and those emails had both. Those examples had both, which is really good.
Right. I'm going to play this video. I know we're going a little bit long here, and we're getting close to the end here, but I think this is as powerful as anything. This is a customer that has basically been doing this for several years now, and it's their main lead generation activity that they do. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
Hi, this is Bonnie with Mortgage Financial Service. I'm John Calhoun. John and I have partnered up. We work as a team to contact a huge number of people on a monthly basis. We use Sales Nexus for this. But I love Sales Nexus. What do you think about that? I can type up an email and send it to 100,000 people. We buy several licenses so that we can reach that number, but it's worth every penny of that advertising budget. Because when we send an email to somebody, all they have to do is reply, we can send us a message, ask us a question. If we want to know who opened it and how many people responded to it, we all of it. It gives us the email address. So we have unlimited access to information that we're generating, and we can contact those people and ask for our clients, find home buyers and borrowers. Absolutely. So one of the good things about business, in sales, you don't ever want to miss a call. So what John does is, even though he sends us over 1,000 not all but one day. After them, we just say 5,000 a day. This way, whatever calls come in, we are able to manage. That's the idea of what this system is that is very robust. We use a very small portion of the application, very but more features that we don't see. What's on this? The thing on this is the thing on how robust you want to go on technology to manage your client.
Okay. That's the main point there that I wanted you guys to hear. They've worked it out to where they send a few emails, a small portion of their list every day, 5 days a week, so that every day they have a small handful of leads to work with. And they're not overwhelmed all on one day, right?
Looks like we might have had a little bit of poor sound quality, so I'm just going to send the link to the video for those who want to watch it.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So as we've been talking about, the situation right now is we're just all kind of in the chaos, right? And but we need results right now, right? We're trying to keep our businesses alive. We don't know what the long-term future is going to look like, and so we can't start some year-long project. We need something that's going to get results in the short term. Your customers are in chaos too. They're in the same exact situation. Their needs are going to shift rapidly over the next few months. Your employees, their employees are disrupted, and their needs and situation is going to move and shift frequently. So you don't have time to figure out how to ride a bike for the first time. You need somebody to just bring you some leads, right? And that's what we're suggesting here. So what we've done, we put together a package between Ramped Up and Sales Nexus so that we can do this for you, so that you don't have to figure out how to do it yourself. So as Scott talked about, we'll take your existing list and enrich it. Add the LinkedIn profiles, the industry, the revenue, the missing email, identify what industry they're in, find additional contacts within those companies, and then find similar companies that fit the same criteria and similar contacts within those companies. And then we'll write and design the emails for you and send it to your list for you. So literally all you have to do is, in the beginning, tell us enough to get to work on all of this, and then respond to the leads that come in. So within just a few weeks, you can be on the phone with potential customers without having to have dropped everything and worked on creating your first email campaign and so on. And it's $2,000 a month. I can tell you firsthand, we hear from customers all the time who are paying marketing firms $5,000, $10,000 for similar types of programs. And the reason we can do it so affordably is just that, being in the business of supporting our customers to do this themselves, we've worked out ways to just make it simple and efficient. And we're trying to keep it simple for you too, so that you're not having to get too deep into marketing strategy. Just let's create some messages to get people's attention and get results. Scott, anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I think just one of the things that, the reason why we showed that, or tried to show that video ahead of time, was just the impact of having an automated marketing system at play. It's almost set it and forget it. I mean, there's obviously, you have to respond to the leads, right? But to have the ability to understand who your total addressable market is, have a message so that you can go and you can reach to that total addressable market, and you can just basically, choose to only contact the people that are raising their hand and are receptive to your message. I mean, that is what every company wants. That's the reason why that's
right.
Such an impactful YouTube video, right? That is the panacea of what marketing is, right? And that's what we're trying to recreate here.
Right. Yeah, and so, Scott and I had been talking about putting together a package like this for a few months. And, we're busy and we just kind of hadn't pulled it all together yet. And then this COVID situation happens, and he and I both were like, oh my God, right now is when everybody needs this. We need to figure this out and make it real. And so that's what we've done. And to try and be as helpful as we can to all you guys who are out there just trying to make things work right now in this crazy situation, done is we're discounting the program by $1,000 a month for your first 3 months. There's no long-term commitment, so you can get started with this program for only $1,000. So while we're in this crazy COVID situation, you're only spending $1,000. You're getting your data enriched, you're getting new data, and you're getting a campaign created and we're sending it out for you. Again, all you got to do is tell us who you're targeting and tell us enough to create the emails, and you just respond to the emails, respond to the leads, sorry. So it's just a tremendous value, and we hope that it will help some of you just stay engaged with your customers while all this crazy stuff is going on. That's our main intent here, is to just help you stay communicating with your customers.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate, we're gonna help you target your audience. We're gonna talk about what you're trying to get your customers to do. Is it read a blog or watch a video or sign up for something on your site? And then we're gonna help you prepare the list, take your existing data and validate it, clean it up, append to it, add more data to it. Then we're gonna write and design the emails. We're gonna create and send the campaign, and you answer the phone or take the leads coming through your website, or you go into Sales Nexus and there's the people that clicked and you pick up the phone and call them. It's that simple. Okay, so we'll hang on here for a little bit and answer any additional questions that have come in. In terms of next steps, you're going to be getting an email tomorrow with all of these links. If you want to schedule a call to talk about the email marketing service that we just talked about, you can use this link here to book a call on my calendar, and we'll talk about your business and how we can help. In chat, if you want somebody to reach out to you today, just let us know right now in the chat here in Zoom, and we'll write down your name and we'll make sure and reach out to you. So if you want to get started talking about this today, just let us know right here in Zoom. Scott, you want to say something about the health check, the data health checkup?
Yeah, so this is basically the process where, we will tell you the health of your current database. So what that looks like is, how many emails that you have are at their current position, do a white space checkup to see if you have, the name, the title, the industry, the revenue of the records that you need. And if you don't have an email address, we can find an email address and then append LinkedIn profiles. So it's like going into the doctor, getting a health checkup on your sales and marketing data.
Yeah, and is there a cost for that?
That's a free service, right? So the free data health checkup. So we'll show you, what that looks like. And then,
Awesome.
Depending on what people want to do with that information, we can pretty easily use that inside a Sales Nexus, or, just kind of have a conversation about what they have, with whatever services they're using today.
Awesome, man, that's great. That's a no-brainer right there. You can also start a free trial of Sales Nexus. You go to salesnexus.com, and there's a big free trial button right on the homepage, and you get to use the system for 30 days free. So you can send out emails, you can create your own emails, you can load your own list in, and so on. So try that. And then also, we created this video series. We call it our 4 Steps to Market Domination. And it's just a short little, I think it's a total of about 30 minutes of video that'll walk you through how to think about your organization of your list and how to create messages that are going to really resonate with that audience. So I'd recommend taking a look at that also. And then finally, we may be reaching out to you because we use our CRM the way that we're suggesting you should as well, right? You're going to be in our CRM as somebody that's attended the webinar. And so we'll be reaching out to you to get some feedback about the webinar and see how we can help you with reaching out to your audience. Were there any other questions that we should tackle before we wrap it up here?
I'm reviewing them. We got quite a bit of questions. So if I can't get to them all, we will reach out to answer your questions. Craig, do you want to look over this as well?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I see Ronnie was asking about the minimum monthly commitment. Ronnie, it's just $1,000 a month. It's, that's it. and that gets you the entire package that we just talked about. Let's see. There's some questions about spam, and I think Scott addressed that later in the presentation. I think the most important thing to know is that your Sales Nexus and really any other email system will automatically manage that for you. If people opt out of your email, they click the unsubscribe link, or if it's a bad email address, it bounces, right? It's incorrect. Or if they start complaining, they mark you as spam, then a good email service will just mark that address as don't send to them anymore. And even if you accidentally try to send them an email, it won't send them an email. So it'll kind of manage that. Scott, any other comments or anything before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on, some topics that we're all living through and, that we're passionate about. I think the one thing about, email marketing and spam, right, this concept of spam is that, there's two things that you need to consider, right? Is this something that you as a marketer or you as a company want to do if it is legal to do so inside of your country, right? And, you can't do it in some places, but in the United States, you're allowed to send an email to someone, right, without them opting in. The best practice, right, is for you to, make it very, 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 very tailored, right? That's how it will be well received. If you just send a blast email out to 100,000 people because you think that they might be good buyers for you, and it's not tailored to that person, I mean, you're really going to annoy people. You're probably going to upset a lot of the inner workings of the people that deliver email addresses over and above just Sales Nexus as well. That's not a best practice, right? I mean, it's something that requires some artfulness to it. But in terms of the legalities of it, in the United States of America, you can send an email until someone tells you to not send an email, provided that you're keeping track of that, and that's what your company does.
Right. Well, first of all, John, thanks again for your contribution today. We really appreciate it. And Scott, really appreciate
thank you.
You being part of this and helping us put together this package. I think it's just, with anything, even though we've talked a lot about how easy email is and how quick it is relative to other marketing, if I put myself back in the shoes of, having never done this, years and years ago, it still seems like a lot of scary stuff that I don't want to get wrong, and I'm not sure I have time for it. And with what Scott can do to help you get your data together, get things organized, that's the foundation. Now, with that, we can create messages that, just like Scott just said, appeal to that audience and get results for you. So we're really excited about this. We really appreciate all of you being with us, and we hope that everybody's staying safe and healthy, and we hope that we can help you grow your business here in the near future. So let us know how we can do that. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Everybody have a great rest of the day, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you. Bye.